this Maimer that we're learning, so first of all, as I said, we're going to start Monday, mit Hashem, Basi Legani. We're not going to finish this. However, some of us learned a good chunk of it. So, as I was telling Fisher and Dobby and David put them on, we'll find a time, we'll learn it together. Anybody wants to join us can join us, but we should finish it. Now, the Maimer is based on the famous Maimer of the Alter Rebbe called the VoEira. It's a very unusual Maimer. It's brought down in Hayom Yom of Beishvat. The Alter Rebbe would say this Maimer every 2 or 3 years. It's known by Chassidim as the VoEira. The Rebbe Rashab's words are a Beza Maimer. A Beza Maimer. It's hard to translate Beza in English, but usually angry. That's the usual term. Gor Moidedik. And the Rebbe Rashab said, as known, the Rebbe brings this writes this, that whatever the Alter Rebbe was writing or saying, the Chassidim felt. So the Rebbe Rashab, Tanya, whatever he was writing, the Chassidim were gripped by that Inyan, Avos Hashem, Yiras Hashem, Mora Shchoire, if he was speaking about that Simcha. So the Rebbe Rashab said, one can only imagine what the Chassidim were feeling when this Maimer was said, and it was said frequently, every 2 or 3 years. What is unusual about the Maimer, the theme of the Maimer is La Yidach Amen and Nidach, that no matter what, there's tshuva. Literally means he will not be pushed away forever. La Yidach Mimeno, from him, from the Eibishter, Nidach, banished forever. There's 2 things that are unique about the Maimer when speaking about tshuva, which is not on tshuva is a very strong theme in Chassidus, very strong. What's unique here is that he speaks about tshuva as shame. Tshuva oisi is busha. That's unusual. And we learned that paragraph, the different levels of busha that applies even to tzaddikim, from the lowest level to the highest levels. Additionally, the Maimer speaks about teshuvah for, since Mitzrayim is known as Ervas Ha'aretz, this is all about Yetzias Mitzrayim, which literally means the nakedness of the land, but Erva refers to the Makom Abris. So the Maimer speaks about the tikkun, the fixing of that chet, and that's something discussed often in Chassidus at all. As you know, like in Breslov, that's all they talk about. And because Chassidus Chabad, the approach is lift yourself higher, be connected to higher. That's what the Rebbe Shitta, and not to dwell on these things, on the past or whenever, and to connect to a higher place. As Chassidus Taitz, Sumer Say Toiv. So the simple meaning is turn from evil and do good. Chassidus Taitz is Sumer, turn away from dealing with the Ra. I say Toiv, focus on the positive. That's overall the emphasis. But in this Maimer, there is, relatively speaking, a mention and an emphasis on this. And he mentioned a fascinating Kabbalah Inyan from the Arizal Prietz Chaim, that the generation, the Deir HaFloga, the generation of the dispersal of the Migdal Bavel, the Tower of Babel, they were the reincarnations, or they were the result of Adam's wasted emission for 130 years that he separated from Chava. And they didn't fix it. So then they were reincarnated again. The Chaimer Olevenim, the bricks and mortar that they built to the Tower of Babel, become the bricks and mortar of Mitzrayim, Shibud Mitzrayim, and that was the tikkun. And they came out of Mitzrayim, and that was elevated. It's quite the process and quite the Mauritian, of course, being a composite man. He wasn't just an individual, but the founder of humanity. Entire generations reincarnated because of his his imperfection, which also, mind you, implicit in all of this also is that this is also all part of the plan. Obviously, everything is part of the plan, including, it's difficult to say, we shouldn't abuse this fact, but it is the deepest fact, that even transgression, sin, intentional, unintentional, it's all part of the divine plan. It's clearly the story with Admo, critical stories in the Torah. It's all part of the divine. That's all fixing. It's all about tikkun, fixing, and teshuvah. But the emphasis, and again, Chabad is the positive, is dafka besimcha. The Rabbi would counsel, as I said, not to think about these things. Pasha Mashiach, don't dwell on it. It's all that's Tzahara's ruse. There's a famous word. I think it's a Kotzke word. That the Yetzer Hara's primary objective is not to get a person to sin. It's feeling unworthy afterwards. That's what he wants. The depression, the unworthiness, the guilt that paralyzes. That's really what he's out for, not the sin itself. As the Vot goes, there's no commandment in the Torah that not to be depressed, because it's so damaging that it's beyond any negative commandment. It's worse than. And the flip side is there's no commandment to be joyous, but there is. I forgot the flip side, but that's the Nakud. The Nakud is that's really his goal. So that's why this Maimer is unusual. But it doesn't go into Pratim, and it's still very positive. Now, the Rebbe's question, which is part of the tremendous positivity, even in a Maimer like this, the Frum Alech Lecha, a Bezich Sidis, Go Meiredi, quote unquote, from the Rebbe Rashab. Even in this Maimer, what's the Rebbe's question we're dealing with now? And that's where we're going to pick up the text. And it's a Hemshech, amazingly, from this Kislev. All of my morning for this Kislev has been connected. We're already now, Shvat. How beautiful is that? So the Rebbe Shaila is, the Maimer talks about Golos Mitzrayim, and the Tikkun, and that's required, the Shibud. So the Alter Rebbe should have said this whole Maimer, Parsha Shmois, which deals with Golos Mitzrayim, and he didn't went down to Mitzrayim. Why did he speak about this whole Indian, L'idach Hamena Nidach, and Tshuva, and the whole business in Pashas VoEira, which is already the Pasha of redemption? So in the question already we see how the Rebbe is lifting us and making all of this positive and redemptive and part of the process of redemption and simcha. That's without learning the answer, just the question itself. So that's what we're up to. So we're going to begin the answer. Excuse me, Ois Hey. All right, so I can't, if you're just joining us, don't read before, but you got the summary. By all means, learn it later. And as I said, it'll be official. We're going to learn it. We're going to find the time to learn this and finish the Maimer. There's a particularly personal relevance because Bei Shvat, that Yom that deals with this Maimer, is my birthday. So I want to learn it too, and I want to learn it with you guys. So we'll do that. And Monday we'll start the Maimer. Now Yom of Bei Shvat, if you look there, there's a very cryptic statement from the Tzemach Tzedek about this Maimer. He said that Oir is always the same, but for Mo'er, every time the Alter Rebbe said it, he said every 2-3 years. So Oir was the same. He said the same words, said the same Maimer, but Mo'er is always something new. Now what that means, we'll talk about it on Bei Shvat. Okay. Mo'er is always something new for Mo'er, and Oir is the same. Which is okay, we'll talk about it then. All right, enough with that. With the Hakdama, let's begin. Hey, you've been back to Mashnas Berliel. So this is the Hemshech, which we all remember, which we learned before in the mind of Yutis Kislev, and that is as follows. So even though we were contrasting there Shlomo and Moshe Rabbeinu, so Shlomo's elevation of the world is elevating the sparks. Was higher, deeper. The scope was wider. Moshe said, when the Aron would travel in the desert, arise Hashem, your enemies shall scatter before you, and those who hate you shall flee. Now contrast this with David / Shlomo. Like David, not like David. David is one that composed it in Tehillim, but it was all for Shlomo. Sheikh and his Kolin Yonim, he prepared everything that was then actualized by his son Shlomo. Everything David HaMelech said was all guided by Hashem. Shomar, no, the Shlomo HaMelech said that, referring to David HaMelech. The Ksav is David HaMelech. It was all given to him by his father and Hashem. So what does he say? Tilim Shomar Kuma Havai L'Nuchasecha. Arise Hashem L'Nuchasecha, to your resting place. So the whole union of Shalom, tranquility, not having to battle or engage the enemy. Now, to analyze. Even though in Moishe Rabbeinu's time, the elevation of the world was to the traveling of the Aron. Now that was in brackets, it wasn't a natural elevation of the world. Yeshua engaged in battles. It was Meliubavitch and Teva. Still, and by Moshe it wasn't, the Aron traveled, and all the terrain was leveled, and the snakes and scorpions were eliminated. But still, in the Gam Lacher Abirur, they were eliminated from their path, but they still remained. There was still opposition. Your enemy, those who hate you, scattered and flee. Shlomo was the 15th generation from Avraham, and 15 represents the 15th day of the month where the moon is full, in full alignment with the sun, representing Klal Yisrael and the Shlomo's tenure, fully illuminated and aligned with the Eibishter. So it was a Shlomo's. And Ksibbe says about him, Vayoshav Shlomo al Kisei Havaya. Quite the statement. He sat on the throne of God. Sheyoshav b'menucha, and he sat in tranquility. There's no need for war or even to go out and engage the enemy in any way. And just being where he was, he radiated such kedusha that the whole metzius of the enemy and the hater is in his battle, but not just in his battle. Malchus Shvon, Queen of Shiva. She heard the fame of Shlomo, and she came to Yerushalayim with a great entourage, with a great many hosts, literally an army. The Neisa Pashtus, in addition to the simple pshat, and because it's a bit pshat, the pasuk never leaves its simple meaning. It also means as they got she brought all the sparks of her realm. She via Malchus Shvoim that she brought with her, which she elevated. Further detail, she just heard about it. It's already enough to affect. Let it in your ear, not just seeing, which would certainly be impressive. Just hearing his fame, drew her. It affected that the divine sparks that are part of her and her realm are drawn to Kedusha. Like a torch that draws to it every fiery spark. Still, so that's the contrast to Moishe. On the other hand, one second. Which sparks are being attracted, where the holiness is somewhere there. There's still a longing. There's a search for meaning. And therefore, the attraction to Shlomo Melech. Using the mashal of the torch and sparks, there is a spark here. Therefore, the spark is drawn to the mother flame, to the torch. I told the Sholem Ber Cohen told me that someone told him he'd made an experiment and see, yeah, he made a torch and sparks somehow, small flames were drawn into it. But during his time, there were those sparks who have completely lost all godly light. They were not drawn. Like you explained elsewhere, where's the elsewhere? Eter. This which he writes that in outright sin, there's no good at all. So he says in Eter, again, this is the Rebbe, doesn't mean there's no spark. Nothing can exist without a good divine spark that's animating it, creating it. Ella. The spark has become distant, metaphorically, and darkened, but still there. The Pasuk says the light of the tzaddik illuminates, but the flame of the wicked like springs away, extinguishes. There is a spark, there is a flame by the wicked. Kova, it's extinguished, and it's no longer manifesting as fire. But the word yidacha means like it springs away, which it still exists, but it's not manifesting as light, it's kedusha. I think that's the diuk. Not to say that the light of the wicked is extinguished. It's yidach becomes, it's an unusual word, but it means to spring away. So it's still there. I'm sorry. Therefore, it doesn't respond to the flaming torch because there's no light, there's no fire there. Becomes like evil. It cannot become evil, it's divine. We find an example in Halach and Nigla. There's a way the shahat and nepach lis yisro, there's something permissible can become also. The piece of meat itself becomes like an avela. The classic case is a piece of kosher meat. So if the milk falls on it and the ratio is not shishim, it's less than that. So now the whole meat obviously is not kosher. There's a bit of milk and it's not bottled. But what happens if this meat, this kosher meat, falls into a stew of other kosher meat? So you would think that the ratio would be how much milk fell into the original piece. And then it'll be nullified if it's in total 60 times more. No. The h'tchk atzma is now considered like a whole piece of milk, a whole piece of treif. So now you need 60 times more in the new pot against the h'tchk, that piece of kosher meat that has a small amount of milk in it, but not enough to be nullified. So that's an example of something that's kosher that became nevela. That's also a good example because that can be redeemed too. If there is enough, 60 times more, even the nidita will become bottled and kosher, permissible to eat. So it doesn't say it here, but also points to the redemption even of the outright chatoim. Give them So what the Rebbe is a mid thought here. So the Tutis, first of all, he says, because later in the Maamar the Rebbe says about this, you'll see even stronger things, that there's always tshuva. We'll see later. So such sparks, Shlomo did not elevate. Which sparks? Sparks that became darkened. So that's, notwithstanding his mila over Moishe, but only responsive sparks. Malchus Shva was responsive. There was an element there of seeking meaning in life and and being inspired by Shlomo Melech. But to elevate even the darkened sparks, that will be lasted loving Meshakosov. I will remove the spirit of impurity from the land. Ksiv is all the psukim he brought. Next one. In the Maimorim, the Hemshech we've been learning, I'll transform the nations, they will all serve Hashem. Shem Echad means one, unified shoulder to shoulder, one consent. The Ra becomes transformed to good. So then even those sparks that the light is gone and they become like evil themselves, the peace itself now becomes objectionable, even though in essence the piece of meat was kosher. There's just something in it that, that too is bad. Mashiach will come to be elevated and incorporated in Kedusha. Now the point is going to go on to say, we'll continue next few minutes or not. It's really late, huh? You have to daven. Okay. The next, so we'll learn this together. We'll put it out. Anybody wants to join us, we'll find a time. Don't be thinking of a good time. Official, David will put them on. The guys that were here throughout this. Shabbos maybe. I'm not here Shabbos. We'll find a time. So the next, the Hemshech goes on to say, this is a wonderful madrege. We're not waiting for it. It starts now. And I'll give you also a heads up that even though the Alter Rebbe says that Avedis and Gibel Tibbas Atmeis, so they cannot be elevated until Mashiach comes, the Alter Rebbe adds that Batshuv Me'ava can, and Rebbe emphasizes that, and there's no barriers. There's no barriers whatsoever. And the tikkun and the teshuvah is not just then, but now. V'adarabba, it's all, again, part of the whole plan, the whole journey. So it's a very hard-hitting mindset, but as hard-hitting as it is, that's how inspiring and uplifting it is, because he leaves no stone unturned, no matter what. That would say this mindset every 2-3 years. To give the koyach, to give the bracha, to give the koyach. Okay, dear friends, have a wonderful day and good Shabbos, and Be'ez Hashem, we'll see you.
Rabbi.
Yeah, we'll
have
see
a
you.
Great Shabbos.
Yeah, you
Shabbos.
too. Sunday or Monday, you can join this shir on Sunday morning too. But if not, Monday we'll start Basi Lagani. There's 4 Maimorim this year connected to Basi Lagani from the years 1966 that we're learning. This is our Hamshech. Tavshin Chavov and Tavshin Memvov, 1986. So we're looking.
Good Shabbos.
We're looking forward to learning it. The whole Lubavitch world is excited about the Maimer. Everybody's going to start, or if they didn't already, to really koch sich in it. So we're looking forward to that. Good Shabbos, Psudas Toivus, everybody.